Many of you have shared that you kind of struggle to turn a musical idea into a full arrangement. So let's take the theoretical concepts from my last two videos on arrangement and put them to practice. So we're going to look at a bunch of music theory, among other production skills, which are going to help you to get closer from your initial idea to a full track. We're going to work on the track idea which you just heard in the preview and kind of try to make the next steps towards an arrangement and a full track. Just to get you up to speed, the elements that we had so far are these drums, containing the snare, which had like a crazy amount of reverb, which we gated. We had some hats in there, fat 909 kick, conga groove coming from just two samples. Bassline, also coming from a sample, playing in the key of F sharp minor. We had this cool synth sound coming from the M1, just playing a sustained F sharp. Then we had these house chords, playing an F sharp minor 7 and an inversion of a B minor 7. And then lastly, we had some vocals. So this is what we have so far. I think at this point some people tend to struggle to turn a musical idea like this into a full track or arrangement. And the main point I kind of tried to bring across in my last two videos on arrangements is that sometimes you need more than one musical idea to turn that into a full track. And if you look at arrangement, what it kind of means literally, it's putting things into an order, right? Kind of you have building blocks and then you're looking for a nice order to put them in. But you need enough building blocks for that to actually make that happen. So I think what will help most people is to kind of take a look at how we can take a musical idea like this and create more musical ideas that relate to the stuff that we already have, but are still kind of different to create variation. So we're going to take a look at the chords, at the bass line, and also at the drums. But let's jump in and take a look at these chords right here. And we had these very stabby, bright house piano, right? Like I said, playing an F sharp minor 7 and an inversion of a B minor 7. Let's kind of try to turn this into a new progression and create a counterpart to the piano that we have. And I'm just going to paste this over to a new channel where I have a Rhodes emulation waiting. This is Lounge Lizard. Just like that, it would sound like this. This could already be an element that you use, but I kind of want to create a counterpart, something that's different in vibe compared to the house piano, so we can kind of work with some contrast and create some cool moments in our production. So I want to turn this into something mellow and sustained. I'm just going to grab these chords and stretch them out so I have a full phrase with these sustained chords. And what I'm also going to do, I'm going to bring down the velocity of all the notes, because something that happens if you hit something really hard, it gets brighter and kind of spikier. And we already have this nice bright house piano which is poking through, but now I want to have something nice and mellow and sustained. So let's listen to that. Okay, that could already be like a different element at a different part. But since we just have this two chord progression, I kind of want to expand this idea because it might get a bit boring over time and we want some variation. And I want to show you the easiest way how you can go about turning this progression into a new one. And what I would do is just, for example, we have this chord, F sharp minor 7. Let's turn that into a new chord like an F sharp minor 9. So we're adding the 9 up here. If you're thinking in the key of F sharp minor, let me just bring up the virtual piano for that real quick. So we're in F sharp minor. We're adding the 9, which is also the second note in the scale, depending on how you count it. That's where we're at, but just to kind of explain what's happening here. So we're playing this chord, which is almost the same as an F sharp minor 7. We just added one note. But what happens if you now remove the lowest note? You actually get a new chord, which is an A major 7. And this is obviously in the same scale and connects quite strongly with the F sharp minor 7 because we're sharing these three notes, right? So this would be the F sharp minor 7, this would be the A major 7, and they're sharing these three notes, which makes them connect quite nicely. And we could also just use this F sharp minor 9. So we have 3 chords that we can work with, which will connect nicely, but give a different kind of flavor. What we can also do, as you see over here, we had this B minor 7, right, which was inverted. So in a way, if you just move notes around an octave, so for example, this one in Ableton Live, if you hit shift and arrow up or down, you can move something around an octave, right? And this is the easiest way to create some inversions, because like this, you can just move everything around for an octave. Let's bring the 9 down, for example, to get a slightly more closed voicing. So all these inversions will have slightly different flavors. Let's do the same we did for the F sharp minor 7 to the B minor 7 and also add the 9. And in the B minor 7, let's go 1 octave up from the B and then 2 up, which is the C sharp. So we add the C sharp to have a B minor 9. Bring down the velocity to match that. That's already kind of a nice variation what we have. If we create an inversion, bring this up down again 1 octave, the 9. That sounds pretty nice. So now we already have 2 kind of different chords that we can work with. Let's actually duplicate this because we have a 2 chord progression. Let's try to make a 4 chord progression, right? And kind of use the principle which we just used. So we're going to stay with the F sharp minor 9 for here, but then kind of bring this down. And then here we can remove the lowest note, for example, which give us the A major 7. Maybe here bring down this note as well, and then maybe one more. So we have a pretty cool progression. You can remove a note or leave it at the B minor 9 or turn this into a B minor 7, for example, if you remove the 9. The 9 was the C sharp. Let's find the C sharp in here. So we're taking out the C sharp. So that's a new cool progression, which we really easily created based on the one that we have here. And it's kind of going to connect quite nicely with the stuff that we have. Let's listen to that in context. So we had our full track like this. Let's copy everything down. Okay. Take out the kick. Nice. So it's really easy if you just skip the notes around for inversions, maybe add one more note in there to create a new progression. Something that might not be that easy is coming up with these nice initial chord progressions, which is why I actually created a MIDI pack containing 30 plus cool chord progressions, which you can use for house, deep house, and things like that. If you're interested in that type of thing, you can check out the link in the description. But let's now move on to the bass line, because we want to add some variation to that as well. But just as a reminder, let's listen to the bass line by itself. So since we're in the key of F sharp minor, we're kind of just moving up the steps of the scale of F sharp minor, right? And let's create some cool variations so we have some different vibes and different parts that we can work with. And the easiest way to go about that is, I would say, let's kind of go from simple to a bit more complicated. To pick some notes from the bass line, for example, the first 2, and kind of just jam it out and try to come up with some new ideas. And let's do that. So we have the F sharp and the A, right? Let's just play the drums. Play our bass, just these 2 notes. Let me actually bring up the virtual piano so you can see what I'm doing. And let's record it. Okay, my playing isn't that great. Up here I kind of messed up, but you get the idea. We have these 2 notes playing this new rhythm. And in the end, we're just adding one more note to have some variation. So let's see how that connects in context if we listen to everything. Bringing out the kick. Let's not play the chords for now. Like this could already be some variation. Take out the kick and then bring in our keys. Nice. So we kind of created a new bass line with just the first two notes. This is going to connect nicely with what we already have, but still kind of bring a new vibe because it's more like repetitive and short. Let's do one more bass line idea that we can also connect with the stuff that we already have. So if we look at the bass line that we had, something that's happening in here, which is kind of cool and connects well with the chords, is the fact that we're starting on the 1, the F sharp, and then we're landing on the B slightly before the second chord comes in, but still kind of when the second chord comes in. So we're playing this F sharp minor 7, right? B minor 7. So the bass line kind of follows the chords, but at the same time does its own thing. And if we kind of keep that in mind, that we want to start on the 1 and then land on the 4, which is the B, we can use that to kind of keep the spirit of what we have, but still kind of come up with something new. And a cool sound that's always kind of nice, like here we're stepping up the scale. What you can do oftentimes, which is to just jump up 1 octave to get a cool bass sound. So this would sound like this, right? I'm just playing a B and then a B 1 octave higher. And the second note we had in our initial bass line was this A, right? So let's just say we're jumping from a B to a B, but then we jump down to our A and then back to our B that we had. So like I said, we're starting on the F sharp, and for the second chord we're landing on the B, and in between we have this A. We can just add another B like in between. So let's record that in with the drums playing. Okay, I messed up a bit over here, but we can correct that. This comes a bit later. Cool. So now we have 3 bassline ideas, which all work kind of nice. This is cool and sustained. And this one kind of short and hoppy. So what I like here is that we kind of have, sometimes you have the bass line nice and sustained, and we have these stabby chords, and then we have the bass line kind of a bit more bouncy and repetitive, but we have these chords which are sustained with some variation, right? So just with this, we can create many cool moments. Let's jump into the drums. And here, one of the main elements which stands out is this crazy snare with all the reverb on there. What many tracks do is kind of say, okay, we kind of want to ditch the snare at some point and create some contrast. Maybe bring in your typical clap. So we have a 909 clap, which I already lined up. We can just play a basic clap rhythm. Let's actually use this one. And in the snare track, let's add like a basic kind of jacking 909 snare, which goes nice together with the 909 clap that we have. So we're just gonna do, okay, here. Okay, here we want to duplicate that. Okay, I prefer this rhythm. Let's see. Okay, nice. For your arrangement, an obvious move would just be for drums, which oftentimes works, to take out some elements, bring in some elements. So if we're starting the track, we can, for example, start with just the kick and the congas. Nice. Then we bring in the hats. And now you can decide, do you want to bring in the clap? Or do you want to bring in the snare? Okay, this is nice and this is cool and stable. This groove like this can already be kind of like an instrumental part in the track somewhere. And if we combine this with these different bass lines that we had, then bring in some of these. This could be our intro vibe. Okay. Bring in this. Take out the kick. Cool. Okay. Just playing around some here. Bring in the keys right away. Something which is also nice to go without keys. This could be a nice bridging part, and combining this with all right, you can turn this into a breakdown, use some different vocal chops and samples for that. My main point for this video was kind of to create some variation in your musical ideas. Then on these elements that we have here, these bass lines and things, we can still take the same approach, kind of duplicate this and create some variations even more in the stuff that we have. For example, here we're kind of going up, right? Maybe this D sound right here is very particular, so let's bring this down, for example. Okay. Would be a very simple variation. It's up to you to turn this into more things. You can do the same thing with the other bass lines that we created, and also create some variations using the approach, creating different chords. And then if you check out the vocal samples, I think some of them have a different energy. Like obviously we had this crazy scream in here, which some people hate, some people love, but that would be something for the drop, I guess. And then, for example, these ones.
I guess I have, boy. I guess I have, boy.
You can use these for a nice breakdown, and then, yeah, use this stuff that we have and turn it into a full arrangement. I think this is good for this video, and I hope you found this helpful. Let me know in the comments if I left you with any questions. I promise the next video is going to be turning this into a full track, but I felt like oftentimes the issue is not necessarily putting things into an order and more coming up with enough things that you can put into an order in a way, if that makes sense. And I feel like this that you can use to do just that. Like I said, feel free to check out the link in the description to my sample shop. There's some useful stuff in there for house producers, like the chord progression pack I mentioned. There are going to be some chord progressions which are kind of like this, like rhythmic, and there are going to be some chord progressions in there which are kind of sustained. I switched it up a bit for you to have some examples what you can turn these house progressions into, because in a way, you know, it's a chord progression that is just a starting point. You can turn this easily into some variation by creating inversions, by just moving the notes around an octave, or like transposing it into a key that you need. You don't necessarily have to work in the key which the chord progression is in. You can make that work with whatever you're working with, and also kind of chop it up into a rhythm to have something different. So yeah, check it out. I'd appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next video. Ciao.